Hey guys, welcome. It's Henry here, and today we're going to start episode 1 of our journey through Energies and Patterns in Psychological Type by Dr. John Beebe. And in chapter 1, we sort of get an overview of the difficulties that come with trying to describe this way of thinking to people that aren't familiar. So, in my opinion, this is a great, rich chapter, even though it's only a couple pages. And I've got a lot to get to today, so let's jump in. People that typically get their MBTI score, they don't know the depths of how to use that information or have the full scope of the information itself. They usually get the 4 letters and a brief description of what they might be like in relationships, in their work, in their personal life. And I think that's helpful. I was interested to learn about myself, but once I discovered the cognitive functions, which he gets into right at the start, it began to be a much more deep puzzle that I kind of got lost in and continue to get lost in and continue to piece together things about this. Unfortunately for Beebe, extroverted feeling, introverted sensing, they don't mean anything to the layman. And even in studying this field, it took me a long time to get a decent grasp out of what these functions are talking about. So Beebe developed a plan for this. He needed some words to give to people to bring them into his world of what he's talking about. So he developed gerunds. A gerund is a verb that's acting out in the form of a noun. So basically, when we act out the verb, we're taking on that form. So in an example like, do you mind my asking? We are that which is asking. We are that which is inquisitive. And therefore, when we're using our cognitive functions, especially when we're really locked into one particular function, that is really indicative of our aim and concern in that moment. The way John Beebe lays out the gerunds from left to right in his book, the left being that which is most on the surface, it can be described as what people might see. They see you acting it out and they just think that's what that person's doing. And it might be what the individual's doing almost unconsciously. Then we go over to the heart of the function, and this is what the ego knows it's aiming at and is considered really the meat of what that cognitive function is after. But the most evolved form on the right side is sort of the meta aim of that function, and it's sort of what the two less evolved forms are aiming at ultimately. Later on, I plan to give you some examples that will show a specific cognitive function and what that evolution from the left side all the way to the right side might look like. But first, let me show you all of the cognitive functions and their 3 gerunds associated, and perhaps this might begin to give you an idea of what this temporal process sort of looks like. So let's begin. Extroverted sensing begins with engaging, goes to experiencing, and then in its most evolved form is enjoying. Introverted sensing is first implementing, then verifying, and then accounting. Extroverted intuition is entertaining, like entertaining an idea, then envisioning, and finally enabling. Introverted intuition is first imagining, then knowing, and finally divining. Extroverted thinking is first regulating, then planning, and finally enforcing. Introverted thinking is naming, defining, and then understanding. Extroverted feeling is validating, affirming, and finally relating. Introverted feeling is judging, appraising, and establishing the value. Alright, so let's do TI for an example here. TI would be naming, then defining, and finally that would lead to an understanding. Or that's what the aim of it all is to get to that understanding. Let's look at my shirt, for instance. This is a striped shirt. A striped shirt has lines that are parallel to one another, and they go across some surface. Okay? So when I tell somebody, hey, I have a striped shirt, I'm aiming at them understanding what I'm describing. Okay, so I've named it. It's a striped shirt. The definition of striped, right? That's what I'm trying to get hold of. It's they're parallel lines, and then that should lead to an understanding about what a striped shirt is. All right, for the next example, let's do extroverted sensing. let's pretend we're watching a Marvel movie, something that's completely for entertainment, right? So the entertainment aspect is something that you're supposed to engage in. This is true if you go to a show as well. You're engaged in something. That means that things around it that aren't in that engagement sort of fall away, and you're trying to experience that with which you're engaging with. You're trying to really get an experience there. You're trying to experience it ultimately at the aim of enjoying it. And if you're enjoying something, there has to be some sort of an engaged relationship there with it. Otherwise, why would you be enjoying that thing? I think another example could be used with food, right? If you engage in a meal, you put that plate right in front of you, right? You got the fork, you got the knife, you're cutting up whatever you're cutting up and you're eating, right? Once you eat, you're experiencing it. And the reason you're trying to experience it rather than just nourish yourself is hopefully to enjoy it, right? So that's where it all leads to. At the end of the chapter, Beebe tells his readers that we should be paying attention to what other people use, their functions that they use, to get a better understanding of what sort of type they are, which will help us interact with them. And that about sums up chapter 1 of John Beebe's Energies and Patterns in Psychological Type. It was a pleasure to record. I hope it was digestible and informative. If you've got any questions, please leave them in the comments. And if you'd be so kind, please like, subscribe, and share these videos so that you can bring some more people into the fold of this riveting study. Yeah, thanks again for watching. I'll see you on the next one.